I'm Sanjana, the host of the Art Terraces podcast, the podcast garden of mindset and knowledge for artists wanting to pursue art as a full-time career. Today, the Garden Gnomes and I bring to you a continuation of our series on DIY Art School from the comfort of your home. And today we're going to be talking about every single art material you will need, whether that be digital artist or a traditional one. I've got you covered. But if you missed last week's episode, it is all about environments and organization, which you should listen to after this episode, and the rest of the series will be linked below with the playlist. So just like the first episode in the series, this episode will be very informative, so I would advise you to grab a pen and paper or have your phone's notes ready. Or maybe you just want to enjoy the episode. In that case, grab a snack or a drink and let's go. So in this episode, we will be looking at all types of material for both digital and traditional art. But before we get into that, I think a question a lot of beginners ask is, do I need the best supplies to be a good artist? And you hear the same answer everywhere, but I will say it again. No, you do not need the best supplies. All you just need is a good draftsmanship. For those of you who don't know what good draftsmanship means, it means a good knowledge and understanding of drawing and obviously the application of draftsmanship, and also good technique, which is the application of your skills. So if you want, you could definitely just leave this episode knowing that just a pen, paper, and eraser can teach you how to draw, but I'll still cover every single material I could possibly cover. So let's get started with the easiest of the bunch, digital art. For digital art, you will need a drawing tablet. A simple graphics tablet is good to start, as the screen tablets are generally far higher in price. The best brands for digital art tablets, though, are Wacom, Huion, Gameon, and XP Pen. Out of all of these, I've heard some really great reviews from XP Pen, Huion, and Gameon. Even pros use some of these. I personally use a Wacom Intuos, and they have great customer service, which when I had an issue, which was resolved in a day. But if you're looking for detailed reviews on tablets, so you can make a better pick, I suggest you watch the following YouTube channels, Aaron Rotten and Brad Colbo. And even Ergo Josh has some really long videos covering these topics. Personally, I chose Wacom because I heard about it a lot and because of the customer service, but my coach's best advice was that a tablet isn't as important as the software. Software is king over a tablet. So if you want to splurge on anything digitally, it should be software, and for many reasons. 1, it may be easier to find brushes for that software. 2, it's easier to find valuable tutorials. 3, it makes the learning process easier if you have a program that is easy to navigate. So we're going to start with free software and then go into paid. So some free softwares that I've got is GIMP. This one has a 5 stars and has a near Photoshop level function. It is good for freelance work, for digital painting, but my personal experience with Krita is that it had a very difficult UI and I couldn't easily find everything I was looking for even after getting help. Although there are many people who create beautiful art with this and actually do like the UI, so maybe I'm the problem. Artweaver, which is good for beginners and digital artists. There's also a premium version to this. Sketchpad. This one, the web version, is free and it is best for anyone who needs a web-based sketching tool at any time. Adobe Illustrator Draw is the best for tablet artists looking to create some basic art. There's obviously more, but we're going to skip right over to the paid software. So, Clip Studio Paint. I have been a user of Clip Studio Paint for almost a year and I didn't really struggle with the basic functions of the program as much as I did with Krita. It's overall good. You get access to a community, tons of free brushes, and so much customizing features. You also can get access to 3D materials, animation, and much more other things. It is also possible to make webtoons using this. It has a broad range of uses. Then the second one, Photoshop. If you don't know Photoshop, I think you're living under a rock because it has stood and withheld the test of time. There is a learning curve, so I've heard, but the UI looks similar to Clip Studio Paint. Corel Painter is another one, along with Autodesk Sketchbook and Paint Tool SAI or SAI. And then there's Rebel. I really wanted to put this one in here because this program has a hyper-realistic painting experience. What does this mean? It actually has the texture of actual paint and it looks like real paint. I personally don't think a beginner would need a program like this, but if you want to bend your art style and try different things, I think it's great for after you have finished and completed your beginner stages. And then we also have 3D art programs. A free one is Blender, and the rest that I'm about to mention are all paid for. Maya, 3D Studio Max, and ZBrush. And before we move on to traditional, I want to mention MS Paint. It is a great software to learn for beginners. And yes, you may be laughing your socks off right now, but the only reason people use pro softwares like Photoshop is for the actual gaming and animation industry. But there is this guy on Instagram, his name is Christian Yang. He uses MS Paint and does a magnificent job with it. And really, this shows that you could learn to draw with a sand and a stick. This is a really old program, and at the end of the day, technique and skill is the most important thing. So let's move on to basic traditional art supplies. Let's go through a quick file list of everything. A pencil, graphite pencil, eraser, kneaded eraser, paper, sketchbook, colored pencil, pen, pastels, ink, scissors, adhesive tape, ruler, a canvas, paint, brushes, easel, and other types of paint, and a palette. Now that we've gotten through the quickfire, let's take a little break to talk about next week's episode called Art Mentors. Here's a sneak peek. Now, what is an art mentor and what would a mentorship experience be like? For me personally, I see an art mentor as somebody who is somewhat of a teacher. They've been in the business for a long time and they move with the times. They don't always have to be older because, let's be honest, there are 15-year-olds who are great artists and get tons of likes on their posts, but they are definitely experienced 15-year-olds. And welcome back. So let's continue to talk about the lifetime of these different types of art supplies. Preferably, as a beginner who is trying to learn, you would want to pick art supplies that last long so that after you've learned, you can dive into earning money, then using your first check to replace any supplies that are running out, or you just need to buy better ones. Okay, so the first one is charcoal and graphite. They're at the top of this list because they have a long shelf life as long as they do not get crushed or wet. Pencils, they won't last as long because of sharpening, but they can last significantly long. The best paint is definitely oil paint. It could last for about 30 to 40 years depending on how it is stored and what it is made for. So in this case, having good quality supplies that last long is a good investment, but you should never buy good quality supplies just because you think it'll make you better. And fourth, we have watercolor. As time goes by, it gets hard as the pigment is separated from its own binding agent, but if you pour water on it, they will return back to normal. The quality isn't as good as when you first got it. I witnessed this with my own watercolors, and only once I researched it did I understand why it became hard and powdery. And then we have gouache, which is prone to mold. Some artists add glycerine to it, which doesn't change the drying time, and it keeps the gouache sticky for a long time. Adding a few drops of ammonia can also help with moldy gouache. And acrylic paint also has the same issue. It has mold and dryness in common with all the others. Now let's talk about the best of each of these supplies. Again, these won't make you a good artist, but may make the learning process easier and the shelf life better, as we spoke about before. So the best brand for graphite is Faber-Castell, Staedtler, and Prismacolor. For colored pencil, Prismacolor, Arteza, and Costal Art. For oil paint, Michael Harding, Sennelier, Blick Studio Oils. For watercolor, we have Daniel Smith, M. Gran, and Sennelier. For gouache, we have Arteza Gouache, Winsor & Newton, Holbein Gouache, and acrylic paint, we have Liquitex Basics, Folk Art Acrylic Paint, and M. Gran Acrylic Paint. As I mentioned before, you do not need all the best supplies. They're just there to help the process of learning easier and just so you can get through it. But as I would suggest to many beginners, the easiest thing you should do is learn how to draw. Learning those technical skills can help you more with the painting process, so it would be best to learn with pencils and pens and graphite and charcoal over paint. Now that we've gone through all these valuable tips, leave a follow on Spotify and Anchor, turn on the subscribe button on YouTube, and don't forget to like this and let me know what kind of artist are you and your favorite art supplies. Don't go as yet, you may like this playlist of our DIY art school. Also check out this video on art critique, it'll help you improve, especially since materials isn't the be all and end all.